Okay, we are live. What's going on, my fellow wealth creators? Welcome to another podcast episode of the Millennial Wealth Creator Podcast. Today, I am joined by my new friends, James Dyke, author of one of the best books I've ever read on Wall Street, personal finance, etc., The Pirates of Manhattan. Right here, guys. It's on screen. If you do not have this book yet, I want you to pause the video or the audio, wherever you're listening to this. I want you to go onto Amazon, or I'll link down below directly to it. Buy the book. It is such a fascinating book that goes through basically the corrupt history of Wall Street and how they have basically been plundering the American economy for over a century. And when I was reading it, I almost felt like Neo in the Matrix when he takes the red pill, and I just go down this massive rabbit hole of personal finance, Wall Street, and how like so many of the things that we're taught about building wealth within Wall Street is just an absolute freaking joke. It's not in our best interest whatsoever. It's more designed to extract wealth from us, transfer it from Main Street to Wall Street. And it's just sickening. But here's the thing, guys. We're not just going to talk about the corrupt nature and history of Wall Street. We're going to bring the receipts. I have my notes from the book on specific things that Barry talks about and like the history of Wall Street and how it's treated its investors. We're going to bring the receipts today. And my goal with this is to get you thinking twice about trusting a place like Wall Street with your retirement, your money, etc. It's not specific financial advice. It is to get you asking questions. Is my money in the right place? Is it in the best place for my goals and belief system and my aspirations, etc.? And do I really trust an entity like Wall Street, who has arguably a horrible track record of managing wealth? Do I really want to trust them with my hard-earned money? Not me. But anyways, with that said, Barry, I really appreciate you being here. I am so looking forward to having this conversation. It is an honor and a privilege to have you on. I absolutely loved the book. It shifted so much of my thinking around money, and I just appreciate you being here, man. How are you doing today?
Well, thank you, Matthew. It's always great to get the word out there and help the next generation. And really, we live in a wonderful country, but our treatment of money in this country. I mean, we're the number one economy in the world, Matthew, but we're third world when it comes to retirement planning and this
Right.
And information just about finances in general. It's biblical in the sense that it was a rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is a slave to the lender. And when you understand that, and when you understand banking, Matthew, it wasn't until I understood how the banking system works that I realized how corrupt it really was. And
Right.
I think that's really kind of that's where people have to really kind of understand, first of all, the banking system itself. But any which way you want to go, we can go with this. But that's really kind of the core of the whole thing. When you understand the banking system, I tell people I don't know how to change the oil in my car, but I know how the banking system works, or the asset management system works. And when you understand that, then you can actually be of maximum service to others. I can anyhow.
Sure.
But the problem is the typical Americans are getting screwed every day by Wall Street, by credit card companies, or by mutual fund companies, or the banks themselves. And and people just don't know.
That's why I'm such a huge advocate of just getting the message out, recommending books like yours. It's one of the reasons I started my channel, to share my own wealth building journey and what's working for me. Particularly because like a lot of the stuff I do is completely outside of the system and follows a lot of what you talk about in your book. I love how you marry the concept of not the concept, but like two different titans, I guess, in the industry, where you're talking about the corruption of Wall Street, but you're also you do just such a beautiful job and fantastic job of bringing in the power of mutually owned life insurance companies as well, which used to be like the bedrock of the personal finances of a good majority of American families, and then Wall Street just kind of took over. And getting the message out, because here's the thing: when you read a book like this, and you start to get exposed to the corrupt nature of Wall Street, banks, etc., it really does start to make you think a lot deeper about it. It makes you take your money a lot more seriously. It almost forces you to take more responsibility with your money, which I think is a really good thing. It's one of the major problems in with regards to how and why people are able to actually get screwed over in the first place by Wall Street and banking, is because we've been taught that we're too stupid to manage our own money, so we have to give it over to the professionals at Wall Street. Meanwhile, they are just bleeding us dry, just sucking out billions of dollars from our portfolios and our money every single year. And it's just absolutely disgusting. And so being exposed to information like this really gets you thinking. And it kind of, like I said earlier, it kind of puts you down that rabbit hole of discovering the different strategies, assets, tools, et cetera, that are actually available to us that are outside of that Wall Street system that serve us so much better than what we're normally taught to do, which is to just fork our money over to Wall Street. So where I'd like to start, Barry, is maybe like a quick introduction on your journey and like your journey that led you to writing the book and your personal experience with Wall Street, and what inspired you, what got you to the point where you decided to put all of this information together in a book to get the message out. What was that?
Well, it was personal. It was a necessity, if you will. I've been blessed. I mean, when the first book came out, believe it or not, 17/8, she was the one that published the Pirates of Manhattan. That was, Matthew, was roughly around 2017, but around 2007, excuse me. And I had to reinvent myself, and I got through a very tough time. Went through a horrific divorce. I had lost business. I was very successful. I had benefits business. I had a pension consulting business. I've been very entrepreneurial in all aspects of the financial service business. I've done work with, publicly traded companies, celebrities, and a lot of wealthy people, but I had to reinvent myself. And I intuitively, and now I was also very blessed. I had two great mentors. I had Robert Castellone, who was the founder of Leap Systems. He showed me really from a mathematical perspective the whole 401k type of thing was a horrific joke, which still is. But most people don't want to listen to it. Right. So I knew that really, and he because I was a math guy, and so I used to do benefits for public corporations. You had to know math, so I knew that stuff. And then I was, simultaneously, I was also introduced to a friend of mine, Nelson Nash, who became a mentor of mine around 2001 or whatever. So this all started around 2001 and so I went through. I had to reinvent myself, Matthew, and I realized that intuitively, because I had actually done pension plans, I had done retirement plans. I still do to this day, as a matter of fact. But I realized that a lot of these 401ks, things like that, no one was making any money, and I wasn't making any money because it was so expensive to maintain. They're full of red tape, and I intuitively knew I wasn't making any money. And then it was Bob Castellone's his mathematics showed me that from a inflation and tax perspective, the 401ks didn't make any sense. But it was in Nelson Nash who really showed me it was the downsides of non-contract based funds. And so I intuitively understood that. So let me make a long story short, I've always been a good researcher. I still am. I just finished my 5th and 6th books, believe it or not. But I understood none of this shit works. For the most part, it doesn't. Okay.
It works for Wall Street, not for us.
It works for Wall Street. And then conversely, what I also understood too, and I stumbled into this, and this is when Nelson Nash at the time, he really encouraged me to do it. I stumbled into the banks in a JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Wells Frauds, Citigroup, whatever you want to call them, Shank of America, all these banks, okay, who we were bailing out, were the largest owners of life insurance and mutual funds and annuities in the world. Not mutual funds, but they were the largest owners of cash value life insurance and guaranteed products. And so when I started to figure out the executive retirement plans are all annuity based, I said, holy mother of God, Wall Street wants to throw you into the lion's den of the casino of speculation, but for themselves, they don't want any they don't want any risk whatsoever. Matter of fact, if you work with some of the very rich people, and I have, God's blessed me with that. Really rich people do not want to have a lot of exposure to risk. So what I'm saying is, so on the one hand, Matthew, you have the poor retail person who can really has the least amount of ability to manage risk, and so being thrown into this cauldron of risk. Okay, but conversely, the really wealthy, they don't want any risk at all.
Right.
And so what happens is that
they sell you the garbage so that they can buy the good stuff.
Yeah. And it's still the same thing is the truth of this day. And I think I told you in the next book, I'm showing how Morgan Stanley, who makes 70-80% of its money gambling with other people's money, doesn't have, how much risk they have in their own pension plan, Matthew?
It's got to be zero.
Yeah. So this is the whole thing. And so even like
Moral
the Federal Reserve, who is the central bank who supplies all the credit for all these banks, they themselves have a Cadillac, Mercedes compensation plan with all guarantees. But conversely, for the banks, whether it be or the asset managers, and there's a real problem with asset managers. So it's a guarantee for them. So even someone like Vanguard, who they do, they which is pioneered the index fund. It actually wasn't Vanguard actually invented it. It was actually Wells Fargo, but that's another story. But it was the whole idea about going low cost does not mean no risk.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact of the matter is, during the 2022, and I have this documented with government figures, the American savers lost about 3.9 trillion with a T. That's even in passive investments in 2022. Now the market's gone up again. But so what you see is, on the one hand, the very, very wealthy do not want any risk at all. But on the other hand, retail savers, which is mostly the 401ks now, it's chock full of risk.
Right. So, man, so many different directions we can go with that. Gosh, it's a shame that we're restricted on time here. We can talk for hours about this stuff. First off, I do want to address. I'm a little bit envious of you because you got to meet Nelson Nash. Unfortunately, I did not have the honor and privilege of doing so. I discovered infinite banking and whole life insurance and all that like barely 3 years ago. I think that is awesome. I'm so grateful to him because infinite banking and whole life insurance has completely changed my life. And guys, just so you know, Barry and I are going to do another episode specifically talking about infinite banking, whole life insurance, how to use policies and all that stuff. So make sure you subscribe, stay tuned. I will link that down below once we do that. But I wanted to point that out really quick. I think that's really cool. Regarding the 401k and risk and stuff like that, it's always been really fascinating to me. Like when I started down this rabbit hole, one of the main things I got from the book was that the difference in what the system and Wall Street tells us to invest in versus what they invest in. What's up, my fellow wealth creator? Pardon the quick interruption. I hope you are enjoying this podcast episode. I really appreciate you tuning in. I wanted to just real quick remind you about all of the really awesome, powerful tools, training, resources, etc. that I have for you in the description. I want to make sure you take advantage of it. These are things that have made such a profound difference in a significant impact in my own wealth building journey, and I want to share that with you guys. So I have all kinds of different masterclasses. I'm finishing up my Millennial Wealth Creator University as well. So make sure you check out all those resources and take advantage of them because they made such a huge difference in my life. So with that said, thank you again. Enjoy the rest of the episode. All right. You're talking about I'm pretty sure banks are the largest holders on the planet of cash value whole life insurance. And that should be a clue. It should at least be a clue. Like they're telling us to take all this risk, gamble in their Wall Street casino. And here's the thing. I don't necessarily have a problem with people investing in the market, but I don't think most people are actually investing in the market. They're speculating in the market because here's the thing, Barry, every single person I ask about when I ask them about their 401k, like, hey, what do you know what you're invested in your 401k? Nobody knows. They have no idea where their money is. Somehow, Wall Street has convinced us to hand over a certain portion of our money, every single paycheck, put it into something that we have no idea how it works. We have no idea how many fees we're paying. We have no idea where the money's at, like how much risk we're actually taking. It's just somehow we've been convinced that speculation is okay, that this is what's going to build wealth for me. I'm going to trust Wall Street and what they say to build wealth for me. And like I said, guys, we're going to bust out the receipts here in a minute, okay? But that it just, when you look at what they actually do versus what they tell us to do, it's the complete opposite. And to me, the difference there should be a major clue that maybe what we're doing with our money is not in our best interest. Because I'll tell you, like with the 401k, what's happening is, so number one, people don't know what they're invested in, but they also don't know how much they're paying in fees. So like typically for the 401k, and it's interesting, Barry, I've actually interviewed the Ted Benna, the father of the 401k. He's actually
a friend of mine.
Oh, he is? Oh, that's awesome, man.
Ted's a friend of mine.
Great guy. Great guy. We had an awesome conversation. He's actually not really a fan of the 401k anymore. And here's what's interesting. It seems to me that like some of these things start out good, but as soon as Wall Street gets their hands on them, they turn into a disaster. Yeah, they completely ruin it. 2008 is a perfect example. Mortgage-backed securities. That's actually that as a security that makes sense. It's not a bad idea, but when you start bundling it into a bunch of garbage, you're not checking income, you're not checking, credits, and you're selling it 50 different times, which is what they did. Okay, now it's a problem. But the mortgage-backed security itself, not so bad. 401k, kind of the same thing. Ted was talking to me about the journey that it kind of went through, and it's just kind of turned into this Wall Street monstrosity that extracts so much wealth from us. And the fees on the 401k itself have come down, but it's also the hidden fees within all of these funds that you're also investing in that add up to roughly 1.5%, 2%, sometimes more every single year. And that can literally extract half of your portfolio value over 30, 40 years. And they take none of the risk. Guys, they're taking our money and putting it into whole life insurance.
And that's my whole point. When you understand the system, and I do, there's no risk for them.
Right.
Okay. And when they screw up, when they royally screw up, like they did in 2008, they get the Federal Reserve and the taxpayer to come and bail them all out.
Yep.
Now, what I'm going to show people, and actually, thank you for Bernie Sanders he dug this up, but you know how much the U.S. taxpayer who we backed the Federal Reserve, how much we had to put into the world banking system after the collapse in 2008, between 2008 and 2010. You know how much you and I had to back up into the banking system, not just the U.S. banking system, but the world banking system. You know how much that we had to inject into them?
I saw like 8 trillion, maybe. Is it more than that?
16 trillion.
Oh man.
Okay.
So crazy.
Between Morgan Stanley and Citigroup alone, had to have 2 trillion each. I mean, they were so bad because all this crap they had, all this shit that they had, in the system. Okay, so we bailed them out. And then on top of that, now the whole thing is that thank you Bernie Sanders, because he was the guy who got the GAO. Actually the government, some of the government research is actually some of the best research you're going to get. But yeah, it's all a matter of fact, roughly 16 trillion. It was not just U.S. banks, but we're pumping money into crappy banks like Deutsche Bank or Credit Suisse, which is now not even in existence anymore. I mean, right. So we
bailed out the entire world.
We're bailing out all the banking systems, okay? But all the biggest banking systems, but the American consumer is getting screwed every which way possible. So anyway, so
we pay for their gambling debt.
Yeah. Right? So that's the whole thing. So I think one of the things which I want to strive for your listeners is that you really have to be self-reliant in the days ahead.
100%.
Yeah, I just lost the video. Did you get that?
I see the video. It looks like a light went out or something.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
kind of dark.
I don't know what happened here.
Oh, there you go. Yep.
I can't see you though. Can you see me now?
Yeah, I could see you.
All right, we can go on.
Yep, you're good.
I'm okay because I can't see you. But anyway, so let's keep.
It should come back in a minute.
So that's weird. But anyway, that's weird.
You are frozen at the moment, but I can still hear you. So
okay, so I don't know what happened there. Well, it's
that's okay.
technology.
Yeah, that's tech for you. So yeah, I mean we pay their gambling debt. So they take our money, we take all the rest. They take our money, they gamble with it as well. And then when their sucker's bet doesn't play out, then we pay for it. So we're getting screwed in multiple different ways. And like I said, there's nothing necessarily wrong.
Okay, now okay. So hang on 1 second. Maybe I can pull it. Are you there with me?
You're still frozen on the screen, but I can still hear you. Sorry for the tech issues, guys. You know how it is.
Okay, how's that now? Is that better?
There we go. That is good. We got you.
Technology. Oh
yeah. I deal with it every day, man. I deal with it every day. So I get it.
Sorry about that, but anyway, so yeah. Okay. So the thing is that if you're connected in this country, and I love this country. Don't get me wrong. I mean, but the fact of the matter is, if you're a big bank or you're a big farmer or you're big union or you're big agriculture, something like that, of that nature, you'll get bailed out. But if you're a regular person, God help you. You're not gonna nothing's gonna be gonna happen to you. Okay, I'm just trying to fix the light here. I don't know what's going on there. So just hang on. Sorry about this.
Okay.
Hang on. So that's the whole thing. So you have to be self-reliant because the government doesn't give a shit about you, and and what infuriates me is that our retirement system itself. Okay, I mean we're bailing out the pension plans in Ukraine. But we can't even educate Americans about retirement systems or how to say. So we're bailing out Ukraine. What?
Right.
But conversely,
it's a joke.
The
whole system, man, it's just one big joke. And what I've realized is that you're talking about self-reliance. I would add to that as part of the self-reliance. In order to be self-reliant when it comes to money, you have to be educated. You have to increase financial intelligence. What I've noticed is that the more financial intelligence we have, the less the system is able to extract from us, the less likely we are to be taken advantage of by the system. Because as you start to go down this rabbit hole, this is just my personal experience, guys, is you slowly start to exit that system. You slowly start to take away the Wall Street's access to your money. So for example, I keep very little money in the bank. I have some like high income ETFs that I do, but it's a very small portion of my portfolio. I'm talking about like how I'm exposed to Wall Street, but I keep very little money in the banks as well. I keep like maybe 1 month's expenses. All of my savings, the majority of it goes into dividend paying whole life insurance with these mutually owned life insurance companies. You know why? Because they are the strongest financial companies on the planet. They have survived every major disaster over the last 150 years. When you look back at the Great Depression, for example, how many banks failed? Like Wall Street crumbled during the Great Depression. You know who still paid a dividend? Mutually owned life insurance companies. 2008 crash. Wall Street is imploding yet again, okay, because they are just completely reckless, which makes sense because if you know you're going to be bailed out, then why wouldn't you be? You know who paid a dividend throughout that 2008 financial crash? Mutually owned life insurance companies. They have never missed a single dividend payment since inception, the majority of them anyways, right? And so I just like, when I compare those two, and you talk about this in your book, Barry, maybe we could touch on that in a minute. What I'm trying to say here is as you go through this, as you go down this rabbit hole, start to increase financial intelligence. You're committing to your financial education. You start to realize that Wall Street is a joke. What we're normally taught to do when it comes to building wealth is a joke. We take on far more risk than we have to. And you realize that there's these alternatives over here that when you utilize correctly can significantly accelerate the wealth building process in our lives with just a little bit of education. And now we're not at the whims of these financial, CEOs and executives, on Wall Street collecting their $50 million per year, gambling your money away. It's like, your pension, your retirement plans. Like, it's just a joke, man. Why would you want to have any part of that? And Barry, I think you actually summed this up really good in your very first chapter of the book. I wrote it down here. It's called Welcome to the Casino Age. I think that's a perfect way to describe it, like what was introduced and what's going on now, because you can, if you're not strategically investing in the market, you're speculating, man. Like, how do you know what the market's going to do over the next 30 years? We don't. Nobody does. Otherwise, everybody would be rich. Okay. And what they sell us is, over 100 years, the stock market has done 8 to 10% on average, right? But most people are not invested in the market for 100 years. So is that really applicable to our situation? And how do you know we're not going to have another lost decade like we did from 2000 to 2010? You don't. Okay. Now, if that's what you want to do and you're doing it intentionally and strategically, fine. I don't care. But most people are not doing that. We've been in this chapter, in the first statement, I love this. You say a major reason why permanent life insurance is not purchased as much as it should be is that the American public has rekindled its dysfunctional love affair with speculation. I don't know that there's a better way to sum up what's happening right now. Thoughts on that?
Unfortunately, it's a lot worse than it was in 2007, Matthew, when I wrote that book. I wish it was different. I wrote that. It sounds pretty good. I remember the word.
It is.
Words. Yeah, but now not only in the casino age, I say it's shifted into overdrive. And
really,
so,
why is that? How so?
Well, gone off the rails. The thing is that I think I had. Did you see my last book? When I wrote. Hang on one second.
Was it the Retirement Ruse?
Ruse
or Fuse? Yeah,
Ruse.
I haven't read that one yet. Is that one available right now?
Yeah, good. And tell me
Okay.
to go to the website. I don't even have this on the Amazon because that's another story.
Okay. Well, I'll link to it down below.
JamesDyke.com. Okay, you can get this.
Okay.
But this is about. So, what I'm saying is that when I wrote that first book, it was mutual funds, and they're so freaking corrupt. I mean, in any event, I find it incomprehensible. But in any event, so since that time, we have these things like cryptocurrencies and SPACs, special purpose acquisition companies, and fintechs and all this stuff. Mm. And this was particularly big during the pandemic, Matt. And when people, they're taking stimulus checks and they're opening up accounts in Robinhood. It's stupid.
Right.
I mean, and people, right. young men, whatever, just gambling, and so cryptocurrencies. I don't know. I believe the digital currency. We already have digital currencies already through the Federal Reserve, but the whole thing is that without anything to back up, essentially counterfeiting. It's just like fiat money we have now, but
a lot of them are just scams.
So many of them are just scams, and so we didn't have that when the first book came out, and now we have cryptocurrencies. We've got now, and Trump just signed in they want alternative investments, and this is going to include cryptocurrencies and private credit and alternative investments like private equity, hedge funds, which are really complicated. You talk about fees. Yep. And you're in a headlock with this shit for like 10 to 15 years, and no one really wants to talk about it. But unfortunately, so many the lobbyists at Wall Street gets what it wants, and Trump has essentially blessed this stuff, and so I think it was even worse than it was when I first came up with the Pirates of Manhattan.
Right.
It is. It is worse.
Yeah, I don't see it getting any better. Like we're in an age of deregulation right now. maybe that's what needs to happen to keep things running. I don't know. That's 4D chess. That's out of my wheelhouse. But I think you're going to see a lot of that similar stuff. And actually, Tiffany, I can't remember her last name. Is it Cianci? You would love.
Oh yeah, she's a private equity. Yes.
Private
she's
equity.
Really very,
yep.
Yeah, I need to connect with
That's
her. She's
another
a very, very, very bright gal.
She is super sharp, man. And what she exposes with private equity, and it's another aspect of Wall Street, is just disgusting, man. It's just another example of how destructive Wall Street is. Like they do not care how many jobs are lost, how much money is lost from investment. Like they do not care as long as they get paid at the end of the day. It is just absolutely disgusting. And that's why it's so important. Like this addiction to speculation, man. It's like if people don't break that addiction, then I mean, you're really going to suffer the consequences later on in life. And at that point, it's probably going to be too late to do anything. I wanted to, what I like to do is start getting into some of these receipts here. All right. Some of these real life examples that you provide in the book, because I just think it's really eye opening. It's one thing to hear somebody talk about or say that Wall Street's corrupt. I mean, we know that. But what are some specific examples, right? So here's one of the things that just kind of blew my mind. One of the quotes in your book, you said, this was a quote from George Soros, okay? The trouble with mutual funds is that they are rewarded for the money they attract, not the money they earn. That is a little concerning to me. And I've heard it a couple of different ways. Another way I heard it was the only people that get rich off of mutual funds are the mutual fund managers. Like, pulling in $30-50 million per year salaries and stuff like that. But these mutual funds, I don't know. Dave Ramsey talks about like getting 12% on average in mutual funds.
Bullshit.
I don't know what he's talking about. I've never seen anything like that. These mutual funds, again, there's a lot of fees involved with many of them. Fees are not necessarily a bad thing as long as you're getting a lot more benefit in return. But oftentimes, I would question if that's actually the case. All right. That was an interesting one. Here was one of the real life examples, though, that I was just like, I can't believe this happens, man. So I don't remember what was the date. I've got my notes here. Here it is. Okay, so let's talk about Merrill Lynch for a second here. Okay, so guys, check this out. This is all in the book. You got to get Pirates of Manhattan, guys. Go get the book. Okay, so here it is. This was, let's see, Merrill Lynch set up a mutual fund called the Internet Strategies Fund in the spring of 2000, only to close it down in 2001. Investors lost $900 million, which is kind of peanuts compared to what investors lose these days. All right. But here's the kicker. Merrill Lynch earned $45 million in fees during the same time frame. And do you think they gave back any of those fees whatsoever? So who's actually getting rich off of all of this speculation, guys? It's not us. And I'm not saying you can't have good years in the market, sure. But are these the people that we really want to be entrusting our money with? Not really. I mean, I could go on and on here. This one here, Richard Strong, founder and former CEO, Strong Mutual Funds, net worth estimated $800 million. Only paid $60 million in fines for mutual fund malfeasance. So that's a drop in the bucket for him. Even John Bogle talks about this, founder of Vanguard. If you guys want to read a really interesting white paper, he wrote a paper called All In Investment Fees, I think it was. You could find that on the internet. That book is that's insane. He says, in his book, The Battle for the Soul of Capitalism, more than 1/5 of annual gross returns generated for investors in financial markets during the past 2 decades has been siphoned off by fund managers through the awesome magic of compounding returns, has been overwhelmed by the tyranny of compounding costs. Okay? These are all things that we do not think about. We don't even know it's happening. And the book is filled with so many more examples. Those are just some of the ones that caught my eyes. But like, Barry, walk me through, like, what was like, when you're like writing this stuff down, I could just picture your blood boiling, right? As you're,
this is 17,
together. And
this is 17, 18, 19 years ago. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. And like you said, it's only gotten worse. It's only gotten worse since then. All right. I guess, what do you think? What's the solution? Right. So we see these receipts. We see Wall Street's awful. What's the exit valve here? Where's the escape?
Well, it can't be just about money, Matthew. And I tell anyone, I've said this on national radio, whatever. I call it my 5 Fs. The first most important thing in my life is my faith. I'm a Christian. That's the most important thing. The second thing is, my family. We all have families, and I have 3 wonderful children and grandchildren. So that's really number 2 in my hierarchy of things. Number 3 is my friends. We can't do anything without friends like you or other people I know. The next thing is physical fitness. You got to be physically fit, and then finances. But so I put my higher power, God, whatever you want to call it, Jesus. I put him number 1 in the first place. First of all, so because when you understand this stuff and you realize that how difficult it can be to cope with this. And I don't know if you, let's see, for some reason I had hang on 1 second.
Yeah, I've still got you. You're good on my end.
Okay, all right. I lost you on my end. Okay, so I don't know why that's happening, but so you have to, we still live in a great country, but the thing is when you understand the corruption, is kind of part of you have to really do a lot of your own research and be self-reliant. The problem is, Matthew, is that we're what I call what is called the Stockholm syndrome. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yep.
That was in 1973 when these bankers these robbers robbed it was a Swedish bank, whatever, and they took all these hostages, and the hostages became captured. They become enamored with their captors, and I don't think there's anything different between people getting the captors in this case. So the investment companies are capturing the hearts and minds of American savers, and they think someone's like Jim Cramer's on TV so smart. Well, no, he's not. And the thing is, so the thing is that people are really being brainwashed. It's very Orwellian or Animal Farm type of situation. But that's what we have.
Right.
And so, and if you read the truth, and if you read, now the wonderful thing is we do have the internet, and so much information you can figure this stuff out. And if you read it from multiple sources, you'll get it. But the problem is that people they don't do the research, and that's why I do it, because I've actually been working in this field for 40 years. So, I've owned a pension consulting firm. I've done work for publicly traded companies. I've done work with celebrities. I've done, work with nonprofits, and I've been in movies and all this crap. So, so my point is the important thing is for the average person to understand this stuff. So when you understand it, things like whole life insurance or annuities or what have you, or investing in yourself first and foremost, is always going to be the best thing. I think you told me you have a marketing business, which does very well. So everyone's got some gift of some sort. So I always tell people to invest in that stuff first.
100%.
Yeah, and save before you invest. But now,
I love that.
You save before you invest, and
I love that.
There's a huge difference between savings and investing. But as far as Wall Street goes, as far as the asset management industrial complex, it's all the same. And put all the money in. Let us see, and it's very dysfunctional or codependent, if you will. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing is that, but if we want to get good in anything, Matthew, obviously we need to be self-disciplined, and we have to stop listening to all the noise of Wall Street and the asset managers. And so one of the first things is to educate yourself.
Yeah, 100%. So you said so many great things there. First off, I want to address as far as like getting out of it, like the problem is people are brainwashed, and it's much easier. it's much easier to pass off the responsibility of building wealth to somebody else than to take responsibility yourself, right? But look, if you're the type of person that doesn't want to pay attention to your money, you just want to put money in the 401k, and you're as long as you accept the consequences and you know what the risk is, you're an adult, you can do whatever you want. But I am of the mindset that if people were to do a little research and understand what's actually happening and realize that there's a much better way to do things, I think most people actually would take advantage of that. But it's not even on their radar. And unfortunately, the only thing oftentimes that puts it on their radar is some type of catastrophic event. And at that point, sometimes it's too late. It's kind of the same thing with our health, Barry. Like, oftentimes people wait to start taking care of themselves after they're sick, where we actually need to be taking care of ourselves now before we're sick so that we can live a long, healthy life. It's the same thing with our money. We need to take responsibility for our personal finances and building our wealth. Stop passing it off to this corrupt investing industrial complex, right? Stop passing on the responsibility off to them. Take responsibility yourself. Learn how these things work. You don't even really have to be an expert at it. If you stop watching Netflix for 5 hours a week and instead watch some really good personal finance content, just start to educate yourself, you'd be amazed at what you can accomplish and how significant the changes will be in just like 6 to 12 months, right? But you got to commit to it, right? And I want to wrap this part of the conversation with what you said. I think is so profound. Save before you invest. I love that. That was a big part of my philosophy when I started going down this rabbit hole. I realized that there was a huge difference, and most people think that when they are putting money into their 401k and investing in these mutual funds, whatever, Wall Street tells them to invest into that day, all right, they think they're saving for retirement. You are not. You're speculating. Investing. I was going to say, actually, if you don't know what you're investing in, you're actually speculating for your retirement. But in the best case scenario, you're investing, which nothing wrong with investing. But I am in agreement with you, Barry, that some people have absolutely no business investing right now because they have zero financial foundation. Like, you have all this money locked up in this 401k. I guess an argument could be made that that's better than nothing, I suppose, but I don't really like that term. How about we just do it right from the get-go? Okay. Building the financial foundation so that, like, if something were to happen, you have access to liquidity, right? You have access to cover money for an emergency. And like, this 6-month emergency fund to me is just a joke. Like, I don't think that really sets people up for success. Again, better than nothing, whatever. But like, you have all this money tied up that, there's a massive amount of lost opportunity costs as well. Because like, if one of the ways I use my policies is like, I have a really strong financial foundation with my whole life policies with these mutually owned life insurance companies. And then I borrow against my policy and invest in real estate. And it does really good. It smokes the Wall Street financial playbook all day long. It's not even close because my policies continue to grow. I'm investing in real estate. Now, you don't have to invest in real estate. My point is, guys, saving before investing, there's a very big difference. Make sure you have a strong financial foundation in place first, because then you're going to be able to invest so much more strategically, right? Like, you can be much more intentional with where you put your money because you're on a solid foundation, as opposed to desperately trying to catch up. So you have to take more risk and speculate in the Wall Street casino in order to catch up. It's backwards, man. It's backwards. Save before you invest. Invest in yourself first as well. I love that too, because another issue that people have with these retirement plans is that they're not able to contribute enough to them in the first place. Like, if you're only saving $100, $200 a month, is that really going to get you to where you want to be? No, you have to increase income. How do you do that? You invest in yourself. Start a business, start solving other people's problems, whatever that is. Like you said, Barry, everybody is good at something. They have a gift they can share with the world that God has given them. You just need to wake up to the fact that you have that, learn how to monetize it, learn how to serve the world, take that, build a strong financial foundation, and then you invest. Wall Street tells us to do the opposite. And they do that for a reason. That's because when we do the opposite, they extract so much more money from us. That's the system, guys.
All you need is a Mickey Mouse plan. You know what that is, Matthew?
No, what is that? I haven't heard that one before.
Well, this is a true story, and I'll repeat it for you listeners, because it's true, and I've documented this. And then actually, if you're in Florida, okay, and if you go to Orlando, I think they actually have this on the Disney property. So back around 1952, when Walt Disney wanted to create, he had a vision of creating a Disneyland. Okay, he had this idea of creating a clean theme park for families which is away from the honky tonk and the bars and things like that of the day. And he really wanted to have a clean theme park. And everyone thought he was nuts. They all said, "Walt, you're crazy." Now, by the way, Disney he went through bankruptcy 6 or 7 times or something like that. He went through some crazy stuff. And this is all verifiable.
Yeah.
And so this is a true story, and this benefit your listeners too. So he had this vision of creating this great theme park, Matthew, and but no one would lend him any money. He went to his brother. He went to Wall Street and said, "Walt, you're crazy. You got to have gambling. You got to have casinos and all this stuff." He said, "No, I just want to have a clean theme park."
Right.
So he went ahead anyway. He was a very determined guy, and so what he did, he had a home. He had a vacation home in Palm Springs, California, a small vacation home, and he sold that, and he got money from some of his key employees at the Disney companies, but the major seed money because he had to come with this grand plan for Disney World in Anaheim. With the main proceeds he came up with was the life insurance loan. So in 1952, he took a life insurance loan for like $200,000, which is like a shitload of money today, which is probably like $20 million when you come.
That's a lot of money back then.
Yeah, so he had these big life policies. So he took all the proceeds from his home in Palm Springs and the money from his employees, but the major, like the lion's share of the money came from his life insurance loan, and that created the grand plans for Anaheim and Disneyland, and so which is the foundation of the Walt Disney today. Right. So all I tell people, so without the life insurance loan, Walt Disney never would have had Disneyland. So all you really need is a Mickey Mouse plan. That's a true story.
Right. I remember hearing something about Disney and the whole life policy. I've never heard the Mickey Mouse plan though. That's cool.
That's all you need is a Mickey Mouse plan.
That's funny. Oh man, I'm gonna ask the next financial advisor that I talk to, like, hey, you know what the Mickey Mouse plan is?
That's all you need.
Right there.
Just need a Mickey Mouse.
That's
plan,
all you need.
Yeah,
and people really we've been taught to again, this is part of the brainwashing, I think, is we've been brainwashed to not like people don't get excited like when they hear about whole life insurance, right? And usually it comes down to rate of return, right? We've been brainwashed into thinking that rate of return is the most important aspect of our financial decisions, and nothing wrong with with rate of return necessarily, but how are you getting it? How much risk are you taking? And also, we're not taking into account the environment that rate of return is in as well. So for example, with these mutually owned life insurance companies, when you set these policies up for high cash value, they'll typically net 3 to 5%, give or take, over the life of the policy, whatever. Like, that's not a sexy rate of return. But we're also, we have to think about the environment that it's in and all the other benefits that we get. Like, if we're just making decisions based on rate of return, we could actually potentially be losing out on a significant number of benefits over our lifetime if that's our guiding factor. And so when we look beyond, like, to me, if I'm earning 4% in a whole life policy, that's a pretty
net,
as I compare it to like high yield savings account, that's pretty good for a safe asset. That now also I can borrow against to go start Disneyland as well, right? And my money's going to continue to grow at the same time, right? I mean, and then I could take that and I could build wealth like I normally would. There's no reason that we have to do one or the other. We could do both. You set up the whole life policy. That's your base. That's your foundation right there. That's where you save and store capital, right? We're not comparing it to Wall Street's rate of returns, which arguably, like if you look over certain periods of time, are not very impressive, right? It depends on the time frame. Okay. But also we're not speculating at that point. We're now storing a portion of our wealth with some of the strongest, financially strong and solvent companies on the planet. And we can get access to that money at any time to cover emergencies, to take advantage of wealth building opportunities. We have the death benefit as well that protects our loved ones. We have living benefits, chronic, critical, terminal illness riders in case we get sick. It's crazy, Barry. I actually, unfortunately, I have some people in my network that are a little bit older than me. And unfortunately, some of their spouses have succumbed to, one of them is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Lymphoma, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, which fortunately has a pretty good survival rate, but it's just a disaster. And he's only 40 years old. And I see the GoFundMe page and they're raising money and stuff like that, which is great to see the community come together and support each other. But I can't help but think, like, if he had the right information, if we were taught this stuff early on, and he had a policy in place, like he could tap into like a significant source of capital to get the care that he needs. And also it reduces the risk of bankrupting the family and all that stuff. And it's just such a powerful foundation that is lost on us at this point. Like we're so brainwashed into like, we have to speculate on Wall Street or we're falling behind or we're not going to build wealth. And that is just like the complete opposite. It is such BS. And the only reason they tell us that is to scare us into giving them our money so that they can extract their fees without taking any of the risk. We take all the risk. And then, it's no wonder that, between, I think it's 55 to 64, the age demographic, the average 401k balance is like $270,000. I'm sorry. Yeah, it depends on who you look at. It's like I've seen 230 to 270, whatever. But even if it's let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say it's 300. Let's say it's 400. How are you going to make that last for 20, 30 years in retirement? That's a joke. And do you even have a plan to turn that into income? Most people don't, right? You're only taught to stuff money into this 401k. And it's just like, man, it's just a really sad thing to see, because it doesn't have to be that way. Like there's a much better way to do things, guys. Any thoughts on any of that, Barry, as we wrap this up?
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. So, so I address all that stuff, by the way, in the next upcoming book. Is that the fact of the matter is that most investment returns over long periods of time, not saying within a short period of time, because we're in another bubble, I believe. This is my opinion. But if you look at the long range investment rates of return, actually they pretty much mirror 30-year treasuries. But yeah, so the whole thing is really, right. You got to save first and then you can invest. And there's a real problem with I call it the wordsmithing, if you will, because they call all the media says all the 401k investors and all that stuff. That's bullshit. The people that all they're really doing, they're saving. They're not investors. They're like they're a sophisticated hedge fund or a mutual fund. So the whole first thing really is to save first.
Right. Yeah, 100%. You have to have your foundation. Then you can start taking a little bit of risk. Here, like with the investments that I have, I sleep perfectly good at night, man, because I know I've got such a strong foundation in place that is not correlated to anything that's going on in the market whatsoever. I could care less what the market does. In fact, Barry, I actually want the market to come down so I can buy stuff cheaper. I can buy assets cheaper, right? Like I'm hoping for a pretty significant correction, but like if you have the majority of your net worth tied up in something that is so volatile and then it tanks 20, 30%, that's pretty nerve wracking. Like, and if it causes that reaction in you, you probably need to reevaluate your exposure to this kind of stuff and think about having a stronger financial foundation first before taking all this risk. So
yeah, and I'm not against the market at all, because you always have to be it to get an inflation hedge. To get that inflation hedge, and you get what's called a premium for putting your
Right.
money at risk. But the whole thing is that we need to have the fundamentals done first, Matthew. Then we can build
Right.
upon them.
I agree 100%, which, yeah, we can go ahead and wrap up with that. It's a perfect segue into the next episode that we'll do, where we dive into really establishing that financial foundation and using that foundation to help the wealth building process to be more strategic with the different types of investments that we make. And, I'll go into some specific examples and stuff. I've done a lot of it on my channel, but yeah, that can definitely be our next episode, is getting that foundation in place and then putting a plan in place to use that foundation to build wealth off of. So, Barry, it's been a great conversation, man. I really appreciate your time. It's been an honor and privilege. I'm honored to share in the journey of getting the word out, because the lack of financial education and awareness that people have about this stuff it's very detrimental long term. So I'm honored to share in that journey, and I am absolutely looking forward to the next episode. I will link all of your resources down below in the description, guys. Get Barry's books. Get Pirates of Manhattan. That should be the first book that you read. I'm going to get the Retirement Ruse as well. It's good stuff. So I appreciate your time, Barry, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Sounds good.
Thank you, sir.